This is Enforcer, a shield-wielding juggernaut that fulfills the traditional tank character archetype. If you're looking for a survivor that trades off mobility for survivability, but doesn't compromise on their ability to mete out punishment, this one is for you. Enforcer's primary is the Riot Shotgun, a semi-automatic shotgun with decent range. It fires 6 pellets which each have a proc coefficient of 0.5. Each pellet deals 60% damage. At high attack speeds, this thing shreds, and it feels good to use at all stages of the game. Most importantly, it has the ability to pierce multiple enemies at once, making it significantly better when managing a crowd. The secondary, Shield Bash, deals 350% damage and stuns enemies hit. It also blocks projectiles during its animation. If you sprint while using Shield Bash, you'll also perform a dash during the bash, instead dealing an increased 450% damage, increasing up to 700% against heavier targets. This can be useful if you find yourself falling from height, as you can also use this to break your fall momentum and prevent fall damage. Your utility is Tear Gas, a grenade which covers a large area of enemies, lowering their movement speed, attack speed, and armor. This is great for getting hold of a situation and provides some really cool team utility to the kit. It doesn't do any damage, but I think it was a sensible choice on the part of the author. The armor reduction is really nice to amp up your other abilities, keeping it relevant into the late game too. Lastly is your special, Protect and Serve. This is the iconic part of the kit and can be summarized as follows. You take on a defensive stance, block all damage from the front, and amp up your primary fire. This lasts until you cancel it and prevents sprinting and jumping while it's active, so you'll be moving at the pace of a cautious slug while bearing your shield. This does lead to some interesting item synergies with things like Bustling Fungus, or even Starstorm 2's own Watch Metronome to reposition between deployments, and Hunter's Sigil to stack up some extra damage and armor between movements. It's worth noting that you can still use your grenade and your shield bash while you're in this stance, but you're unable to sprint, so you can't trigger the dash version of the shield bash, which is a fair trade-off. In my opinion, Enforcer is great for entry-level players. It's fun, straightforward, and introduces the shield in a way not seen elsewhere in the game. Your early game is going to be slower than most other survivors, which means your route planning and level knowledge will be crucial in not wasting time before you get some move speed items. But in the late game you turn into a bit of a monster, zipping around and then stopping to annihilate everything with reckless aplomb. Overall, the kit feels cohesive. Everything fits within the theme of the survivor, feels good to use, and is tied together behind the identity of a shield-bearing tank. Amping the primary fire during Protect and Serve was a particularly smart choice, maintaining the relevancy of the ability well into the late game. Unless you're willing to get in close and dirty with Shoulder Bash to start your proc chains, you're likely to be leaning into your shotgun for damage, building for attack speed, crit, and other additional damage items like the Plasma Shrimp. Enforcer has 2 ult abilities for his primary, the Super Shotgun and the Heavy Machine Gun. The Super Shotgun has the same range as the Riot Shotgun, can fire twice before a short reload, and fires 8 pellets instead of 6, deals 80% damage instead of 60%, and has a higher proc coefficient at 0.75. On paper this sounds great, but hitting distant or flying enemies becomes a real problem for you in the early game as the Super Shotgun suffers from much higher spread. The damage potential on the Super Shotgun is much higher, especially as it fires both barrels at once while Protect and Serve is active. But keep in mind that unlike the Riot Shotgun, the Super Shotgun does not pierce, so that damage potential is constrained to one target rather than many. Without the piercing property, you'll also want to invest in some area damage in the form of something like Gasoline, Wisp, or even Ukulele, taking advantage of the Super Shotgun's higher proc rate. Overall, it's a decent ult skill to have in your back pocket once you've mastered the Riot Shotgun, but you'll have to get into your enemies' faces to get the most out of it, increasing your level of risk. The Heavy Machine Gun is Enforcer's answer to the question, what if shield, but also range? It deals a respectable 130% damage per shot. The bloom after the first 5 shots makes it pretty unusable at range until you activate Protect and Serve, which dramatically tightens your cone of fire, so you'll find yourself blocking nothing in order to hit things really far away. After playing with both ult abilities, I prefer the heavy machine gun, especially after it picks up some speed in the late game, but I wouldn't complain if given the super shotgun either. The last ult ability we have is for the tear gas, which is Stun Grenade. It's a solid contender for the utility slot, as it gives the Enforcer a reliable way to proc band effects from range, dealing a healthy 540% damage with a 1.0 proc coefficient. As the name suggests, it also stuns enemies in the area that it hits. It's definitely not one to sniff at if you're aiming at a proc chain build, so it's a decent addition in my opinion. The Enforcer style is awesome. The model itself fits nicely with the rest of the vanilla crew, and even comes with some unlockable skins which I won't spoil. The design of the ability icons are clear enough to remind you which is which, although a different icon for his special might not go amiss to make it that much more distinct from his secondary. Just as important is the sound design. The shotguns are distinct and meaty, and the heavy machine gun sounds like it's using high caliber ammo. And it's very clear to tell when you're blocking damage with Protect and Serve from the metal impact sounds that they've used. Personally, my favourite detail is that the sirens on his shoulders are actually functional. Big thumbs up to the mod author for not going crazy with the siren sound effect, however, while you're in combat. It's just enough to tie him into his law enforcement theme without being obnoxious. Really good job. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the goofy emotes which come with him that just add a little tongue-in-cheek humour and personality. Before I get into my final score, I just want to say that these reviews are my personal opinions as an average Risk of Rain 2 enjoyer, so please do give these mods a try and make up your own mind too. So without further ado, I award the Enforcer with 8 pepper spraying cops out of 10. Enforcer gives the player flexibility in his options, which are all viable in my opinion. Some are easier to use than others, but I feel like the differing playstyles that he has give some longevity to the survivor. Ultimately, he feels really fun to play and brings new themes and utility to the lineup. Enforcer gets my recommendation. If I could change anything at all, it would be the camera recoil on the heavy machine gun. The camera shake at low attack speeds feels really jarring and could be way more subtle and still convey that feeling of recoil. The problem seems to solve itself at higher levels of attack speed, which makes intuitive sense, but it's just really annoying in the early game. So what do you think? Is there anything you agree or disagree with? And are there any other details that I might have missed? Let me know in the comments. Finally, if you'd like to try Enforcer for yourself, it was made by the EnforcerGang mod crew and can be found on Thunderstore for installation with R2 Mod Manager. Links are in the description below. If this video helped you to decide to include Enforcer in your lineup, please leave me a like on the video to help others find it too. And subscribe if you'd like to see some more of these. I also stream modded Risk of Rain 2 on Twitch with chat integration, so if throwing an elite Elder Lemurian at me sounds like a good time to you, drop me a follow. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay risky.